I, I sold him to the Mohawk.
You sold him?
Ever since season 8 kicked off, I've been counting down the days for this episode. And now that it's finally here, I can confidently say, it absolutely delivered. For weeks, we've been craving some real action. And this episode finally gave us exactly that. The moment Buck showed up, I knew a confrontation with Jaime was inevitable, but saving his life? That completely caught me off guard. Honestly, he's like the guardian angel we didn't know we needed. Now in episode 5, Jaime finally confronted the traitors on his land and in a way, called upon the devil to stand with him. The devil may have arrived a little late, but one thing is certain, Captain Charles Cunningham is no longer an active threat. But let's not get too comfortable because the danger isn't over. Not even close. Jaime quickly realizes that Cunningham wasn't the only loyalist at the Ridge who wanted him dead. Without wasting a second, he begins making a list of names and hands them over to Claire, just in case that information becomes crucial later. At first glance, removing those men from the land, or dealing with them directly, might seem like the simplest solution. But the episode 6 trailer introduces a much deeper dilemma. Claire raises a powerful point. These men have families, wives and children who are completely innocent and shouldn't suffer for someone else's betrayal. And let's be honest, Claire is right. She usually is. Jaime may be headstrong, but deep down, he's still the honorable man we know. I have a feeling he'll come around. The episode 6 trailer also shows a desperate woman, likely one of the traitors' wives, pleading with Jaime, promising they'll do anything. At the same time, Jaime makes his position crystal clear. If those men come near him again, he won't hesitate to kill them. So heading into episode 6, it looks like Jaime and Claire will be searching for some kind of middle ground. But truthfully, this feels like an impossible situation to resolve. Maybe the women might choose to leave their husbands in exchange for protection. But that's a risky and uncertain outcome. What do you think? Now let's talk about something just as important: Cleveland's return. In the books, Frank hinted that Jaime would eventually fight alongside Cleveland in the Battle of Kings Mountain. But Cleveland isn't exactly known for mercy. His methods can be ruthless. That's why Jaime was always reluctant to align himself with him. However, now that Jaime knows there are royalists on his own land betraying him, he may not have the luxury of choice anymore. The real question is, will Cleveland push Jaime into crossing lines he never wanted to cross? We'll have to wait and see how that unfolds in episode 6. And of course, we can't ignore William's storyline. In episode 5, Brianna was overwhelmed with worry about Roger. Unsure if he was even alive, so she decided to head to the camp. And William, ever the gentleman, accompanied her to make sure she was safe. While Brianna finally reunited with Roger, William had his own unexpected encounters. He ran into Denzel, which is always a welcome sight, but that wasn't the biggest surprise. He also came face to face with Benjamin, his cousin. And here's where the show stayed true to the books. Just like in the source material, Benjamin faked his death and switched sides. While William is relieved to see him alive, there's also anger. And honestly, it's completely justified. Benjamin's actions caused so much pain, and now he's standing on the opposite side as a patriot. Things get even more complicated when you factor in Amaranthus. William has been growing closer to her, so Benjamin's return throws everything into a very uncomfortable space. I genuinely feel for William. When it comes to love, things never seem to go his way. And if Amaranthus's feelings start to shift because of Benjamin's return, I don't think William will handle another heartbreak very well. Personally, I don't think her feelings will change, but if they do, it's going to be tough to watch. Even though the episode 6 trailer keeps this storyline mostly under wraps, it's clear that something big is coming. Now let's shift focus to Ian and Rachel. As you remember, they set out in episode 4 to find Emily, Ian's former wife. In the episode 6 trailer, it looks like they finally reached their destination, but her fate is still uncertain. What we do see, though, is Rachel questioning Ian's feelings. There's a clear sense of insecurity, and you can feel the tension building. This strongly suggests that Emily might actually be alive, which leaves Rachel wondering, does Ian still have feelings for her? Or does he truly love Rachel the same way? Even the chief seems to sense Rachel's inner conflict. But no matter what happens, I believe in Ian and Rachel. Their bond feels strong enough to withstand this challenge. That said, some tension is definitely coming. Ian needs to confront his past and finally find closure with Emily. Without that, moving forward might be impossible. So yeah, episode 6 is shaping up to be intense, emotional, and full of tough decisions. What do you think is going to happen next? Let's talk about it. Ever since that episode 6 trailer dropped, I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Because trust me, there's way more going on than what they showed on the surface. And if you blinked even once, you probably missed some major clues that could completely change how this episode plays out. What makes this trailer so interesting is not just what it shows, but what it hides. Every line, every look, every small moment feels like it's building toward something much bigger. And honestly, it feels like episode 6 might be one of those turning points where everything starts to shift in a serious way. So let's break it all down, because there are a lot of details here that you definitely don't want to miss. Starting with Jaime, because right from the beginning of the trailer, you can feel that something is weighing heavily on him. After everything that happened in episode 5, Jaime is no longer dealing with just outside enemies. This time the threat is much closer to home. The trailer makes it very clear that the tension on the ridge hasn't gone away. If anything, it's only getting worse. There's this quiet intensity in the way Jaime carries himself. He's not reacting emotionally anymore. He's thinking, calculating. And that's what makes this version of him even more dangerous. He knows that the people who betrayed him are still out there. And he knows that one wrong move could cost him everything. But here's the thing that really stood out to me. Jaime doesn't look like a man who wants to fight. He looks like a man who feels like he has no choice. And that's a big difference. Because when Jaime is forced into a corner, that's when he becomes unpredictable. The trailer gives us a very brief moment where he's speaking to someone, most likely one of the men or their families, and his tone is calm, but there's a clear warning behind it. He's not shouting. He's not threatening loudly. But you can feel it, he means every word. And honestly, that's what makes it even more chilling. At the same time, we also see Claire stepping in. And once again, she becomes the voice of reason in a situation that could easily spiral out of control. What I love about Claire is that she doesn't just look at the problem in front of her. She looks at the consequences. And in this case, she knows that whatever decision Jaime makes is not just going to affect the men involved, it's going to affect entire families. The trailer hints at this emotional conflict really well. There's a moment where you can almost see the disagreement between them without a full argument even happening. Claire understands Jaime's position, but she's also challenging it. She's asking the question that no one else is asking. What happens to the innocent people caught in the middle? And this is where things start to feel complicated, because there's no easy solution here. If Jaime shows mercy, he risks looking weak, and that could invite even more betrayal. But if he takes a harsher approach, he becomes the very thing he's been trying not to be. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest struggles in episode 6. Another detail that's easy to miss is the presence of fear. Not just from the traitors but from their families. There's a brief glimpse of desperation, and it tells us a lot. These aren't just background characters anymore. The trailer is setting them up to play an emotional role in the story. Their fear feels real, and it adds another layer to Jaime's decision. Because now it's not just about justice, it's about humanity. And let's be honest, Jaime has always been torn between those two things. That's why I feel like episode 6 is going to push him harder than we've seen in a long time. He's being forced to choose between protecting his land and protecting his conscience. And knowing Jaime, that's not a choice he's going to make lightly. At the same time, Claire's influence is stronger than ever. You can tell that she's not going to back down on this. She's going to fight for what she believes is right, even if it puts her at odds with Jaime. And that tension between them, it doesn't feel like a breaking point, but it definitely feels like a test. A test of their beliefs, and maybe even their relationship. So right from the start, the trailer is already setting up something big. This isn't just another conflict. It feels like the kind of situation that could change the direction of everything moving forward. And if this is just the beginning, then episode 6 might be a lot more intense than any of us are expecting. And that's only one part of the story. Now let's talk about Cleveland, because his presence in this trailer is easy to overlook, but it might actually be one of the most important clues about where the story is heading next. There's something about the timing of his return that doesn't feel like a coincidence at all. Up until now, Jaime has been trying to handle things his own way, keeping control, making calculated decisions, and avoiding unnecessary bloodshed whenever possible. But Cleveland represents the complete opposite of that approach. He's not someone who waits, and he's definitely not someone who shows mercy when it comes to dealing with enemies. And that's exactly what makes this situation so dangerous. The trailer gives us just enough to suggest that Cleveland is back in the picture, and if you've been paying attention to the story so far, you already know that his methods are extreme. He doesn't believe in second chances, and he doesn't waste time thinking about consequences the way Claire does. So the real question is, what happens when someone like Cleveland steps into a situation that's already this fragile? Because let's be honest, Jaime is already under pressure. He's dealing with betrayal from within his own land, he's trying to keep order, and at the same time, he's being pulled in a different direction by Claire's perspective. And now Cleveland enters the mix. That creates a kind of tension that the trailer doesn't fully explain. But you can definitely feel it. There's a strong possibility that Cleveland might push Jaime toward a more aggressive approach. Not necessarily because Jaime wants to go down that path, but because he might feel like it's the only way to prevent things from getting worse. And that's where things get complicated again. Because if Jaime starts making decisions under Cleveland's influence, then we could be looking at a version of him that we haven't seen in a long time. Or maybe ever. A version that puts survival over morality. And that's not something Claire is going to accept easily. Another detail that stood out to me is how the trailer seems to be building towards something bigger than just the conflict on the ridge. There's this underlying feeling that everything is slowly leading up to a larger confrontation. Something that goes beyond personal betrayal. If you think about it, Cleveland's involvement could be the first step toward that. Because wherever he goes, conflict follows. And if Jaime ends up aligning with him, even temporarily, it could pull him deeper into a situation that's much harder to control. The trailer doesn't show us a full interaction between them, but honestly, it doesn't need to. Sometimes the absence of a scene says more than the scene itself. Just knowing that Cleveland is part of this story again is enough to raise the stakes. It tells us that things are about to get more serious, more violent, and a lot more unpredictable. At the same time, there's also a sense that Jaime is aware of what Cleveland represents. He knows the kind of man he is, and he knows the consequences of getting too close to that kind of mindset. So I don't think this is going to be a simple alliance. If anything, it's going to feel more like a necessary risk. Jaime might work with him, but that doesn't mean he trusts him. And that kind of uneasy partnership? That's where things usually start to fall apart. Because sooner or later, there's going to be a moment where Jaime has to decide how far he's willing to go. Does he stick to his principles even if it puts everything at risk? Or does he cross a line that he can't come back from? That's the kind of question the trailer is quietly setting up in the background. And honestly, that's what makes this part of the story so interesting. It's not just about what Cleveland is going to do. It's about what his presence is going to force Jaime to become. Because sometimes the real danger isn't the enemy standing in front of you. It's the choices you make when you feel like you're running out of options. Now let's shift our focus to William. Because if you thought his storyline was already complicated, this trailer is quietly hinting that things are about to get even more intense for him. What I find really interesting is that the trailer doesn't show much directly, but the tension is still there if you pay attention closely. After everything that happened in episode 5, William is no longer just an observer in this story. He's emotionally involved now, and that changes everything. Finding out that Benjamin is alive wasn't just a shocking moment. It completely disrupted everything William thought he understood. And the trailer makes it feel like that emotional fallout is far from over. You can almost sense that William is carrying a mix of emotions: relief, anger, confusion, and none of them have been resolved yet. And honestly, that kind of emotional weight doesn't just disappear overnight. If anything, it builds. And that's exactly what this trailer seems to be setting up, because now it's not just about Benjamin being alive. It's about what that means for William moving forward. There's a strong possibility that William is going to start questioning everything: loyalties, relationships, and even his own place in all of this. And when a character like him starts questioning things, that usually leads to big decisions. Decisions that can change the direction of his story completely. At the same time, we can't ignore the situation with Amaranthus. Even though the trailer doesn't give us a clear scene between them, the tension is still there in the background. William has been getting closer to her, and for the first time in a while it felt like he might actually have a chance at something real. But now, Benjamin's return complicates everything. And not just in a simple way, because this isn't just about a love triangle. It's about history, emotions, and unresolved connections. Benjamin isn't just someone from the past,